Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm DarcyBits. We are making more cards with Urza's AI for Praetors of Enchanted Ice. Bridges between worlds, or frozen bridges between worlds specifically, if I recall correctly. We have made our white, our blue, our black cards, and now we're moving into red. Last time, I thought I could do two colors in one sitting, and it was awful. And I should not have done that. Mostly, there's just a lot of really high mana cost cards in the set we based off of for this set, which would be Theros, Journey into Nyx, turns out. And the AI is just real struggling with those, so a lot more rerolls than expected, and here we are. So, expect only red, but you know. I don't know, if we end up going fast, we go fast, and maybe I do green. I don't know, I really want to do two colors, but I don't think it's likely. I don't think that it's something I should try for. Anyway, let's get started. Our first card is Plague Giant. I'm just excited for a giant. We had lots of giants in the previous sets of the block. Plague Giant is a 3-mana, 3/3 red giant warrior. When Plague Giant dies, each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards they discarded this way. It's a weird way of saying it, instead of just saying the number of cards they discarded this way, because I don't think it's the greatest number of cards that were discarded by a player or anything. That could be cool, right? If it's like, hey, my opponent has 7 cards in hand and I have 1 card in hand, I will discard 1 and draw 7 because you discarded 7 and drew 1, which I think that is like a blue spell that actually exists, so I don't know. I don't think this card's super amazing, but it is cool. I think that largely if you're playing sort of an aggro red strategy, you're expecting to get sort of less value out of this than your opponent will, because you won't be discarding very many cards, but you might have more maybe you'll have better discard payoffs. Maybe you'll be able to use that in some beneficial way. I don't know. Probably not, honestly. I feel like red's not using the graveyard very much. But it does feel like a red effect, and I don't think it's super low value as far as power level. It's passes vanilla test. I like it. I think we should move on. Is it cold where you're from? Ooh, interesting. I'm not sure what the implications there are. I like that. Cyclopean Pestilence is an 8-mana, 4/5 Phyrexian insect. Okay, I'm kind of into this. The idea of, like, the pestilence itself represented by an insect creature. Okay. Whenever Cyclopean Pestilence attacks, each opponent sacrifices a creature. That's not bad. I mean, this is an example of those really high mana value spells. 8 mana is a lot. Can you make 8 mana? Like, is this good enough for 8 mana? Probably not. Usually when it gets to really high mana value, stuff like that, the question I end up asking myself is this something I would feel like is worth cheating out, right? If I was going to resurrect Cyclopean Pestilence from the graveyard and spend, like, I don't know, 5 mana to do that, plus the fact that I'm going through the hoops to do it instead of doing it directly from my hand, am I happy with a 4/5 that makes my opponent sacrifice a creature when it attacks? And that's a pretty strong effect. I think I am. This could be a lot better, but it could be so much worse, and I don't think I want to spend too much time rerolling today, so I think Cyclopean Pestilence makes it in. So far, all the other, like, 8 mana spells haven't been great anyway, so I don't think, not a huge loss. The ultimate lesson in courage is not facing death, but in fighting for what you love. Ancient Grudge Blood. I don't know, that's just a really funny name to me. Ancient Grudge Blood is a 4-mana, 2/4 shapeshifter. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may exile another target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Ooh, I actually really like this one. The fact that it is at the beginning of the next end step instead of immediately means you're not going to be able to get these really interesting flickery, like, you can't spell sling your way into a really massive flickering turn where you just go infinite, which I think is good. I think that puts this in a really nice power level. I like this card a lot, actually. Now, I like it because I feel like it's something you might see in blue, or probably blue, and I like that style of flicker. So, cool. I'm not usually a huge, like, spell slinger type, but for this is a very cool one. I liked it a lot. Yeah, this is like a fair version of the Displacer Kitten. It's cool. I like it. I probably should talk about the card itself a bit more. But yeah, right? If you're playing like an Is It Spellslinger, blue and red, you can sort of cast small spells to exile something and bring it back. Bringing it back will trigger its enter the battlefield triggers again, which is usually the benefit of doing this sort of effect. Although you can also use it to protect something, right? If somebody's like, I'm going to kill your creature, you can flicker the creature away and then have it come back at the end of the turn. So lots of uses. I enjoy this a lot. I do notice, however, if somebody wanted to exile your creature at, like, if your opponent had a murder, right? And they waited until your end step to murder your guy, you could flicker the guy away, but it wouldn't come back until the following end step, because the end step's already started. So that's kind of cool. No, I just think that the power level here is really nice. And I think there's probably a lot of potential for, like, big, interesting red ETBs that you're only really triggering, like, once, and maybe, like, less spell slinger, but just sort of, like, one nice, strong instant or sorcery. Yeah, I don't know, I like it. I think it's really good. It is not known what grudge has wrought between her and Keldoran. It is clear, however, that Keldoran is not so easily reconciled. Lose the Light is a 1-mana red sorcery. Target player draws 2 cards. Huh, do I want to allow this? This is, like, very much outside of the expected power level of a 1-mana red spell. But this is AI Magic. There's a lot of high-powered stuff in the set already. It's not the most broken thing, right? It's not an engine for drawing spells. It's just a one-time effect, and it's sorcery speed, which is a significant downside, right? You can't wait until later to draw up your to be like, in response something's happening, I'm gonna draw 2 spells and then I'll have extra fuel to deal with your stuff. Which, I mean, I don't know if that really matters. Like, leaving up mana is important because then you could do multiple things with that mana, but I mean, spend the 1 red mana, draw the 2 cards, and then just carry on with your day. Like, I don't know. It's clearly a lot stronger than a lot of other things, but I think in the set, it's probably perfectly fine. In a world without purpose, we all are just as blind as he, Baldur. I wonder who he is in that situation. Lose the Light. Also, I quite like that name. Do we keep the Light of Velden? That was a white card from this set. I don't remember if we kept it or not. Dawn-Forged Giant is a 6-mana, 6/6 enchantment creature giant warrior. Ooh, this might actually be a good 6-drop. First strike. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a permanent unless you pay red. Oh. Huh. 6-mana, 6/6 with first strike and a downside. Now, can you turn the downside into an upside? Potentially. Sacrificing things is useful, but it's not like an instant speed sacrifice outlet. It is the beginning of your upkeep, so probably not really worth it. I kind of want to see more, just because I'm interested to see what other things the AI might come up with instead of this. But also, I think this is likely one of the better ones we're going to see. The sight of one awakened in his icy homeworld inspires others to struggle for justice. I like it. Like, giants were important in Gods of Winter, and here we are sort of bringing things all together. Dawn-Forged Giant, yeah. I don't know. It seems hard to pull off. Sacrifice a permanent unless you pay red. So it's upkeep of 2 red, or sacrifice something. It is a permanent. It doesn't have to be like a creature, so you could sacrifice like treasure tokens or something, which is interesting, but it's just not enough of an upside to really be worth it. Like, I'd rather just either this needs to be a lot cheaper or it needs to be a stronger body. First strike is a big deal, especially first strike with a big body, right? Like a 6/6 first strike is so much more useful than a 3/3 first strike. So I'm gonna keep it, but I don't know. I'm always gonna wonder what could have been. But that's the thing. You can't get too hung up. An infinite number of things could have been. Praetors of Enchanted Ice. That's the name of the set. Praetors of Enchanted Ice is a 5-mana red enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, return it to its owner's hand unless its controller pays 2. What? Is this relevant? Like, okay, huh. A creature dying. If my things die, they go to my hand instead of going to the graveyard. Unless I choose to pay 2. Like, if I wanted them to go to the graveyard, I could, which I guess might matter, like, in some situations. Right? Like, if I have something that only cares about when it hits the graveyard, because I think technically it dies, and then there'd be a window for this to happen, and then it would go to the graveyard if it didn't happen, but I'm not 100% sure. It might hit the graveyard and then come back. I don't know. Either way, interesting. I think that's what this is. I think this is less of a, like, aha, you have to pay 2, and because if that's the case, the wording's wrong. But instead, I think there's something here about if I want my stuff to die for some reason, right? If I actually would prefer it. So, that's kind of cool. But even if that is how this works, like, let's ignoring the actual situation there, is this still worth doing? Because it's going to help your opponent just as well, right? Whenever any creature dies, returns to their hand unless its controller pays 2. Like, this would be interesting if it was unless you pay 2 or something, because then you could stop things from going to your opponent's hand if you were willing to pay for it. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, having all of your opponent's stuff bounce to their hand is like, are you going to be able to get more value out of that than your opponent? Maybe. There's a part of me that just kind of wants to reroll this anyway, because it's like, why is the name of the set a card in red specifically? It feels weird. So, I think I'm going to roll this again. I'm curious to see what a 5-mana enchantment will give us. The magic of sorcery heals, but also threatens. Black Market is a 5-mana enchantment. Whenever you cast a black spell, draw a card. Oh! I mean, it's very specific. It only supports red-black archetype, but I think there's support for red-black already in the set, or at least in the block. And is that too strong for 5 mana? 5 mana is a lot of mana, so maybe not. But anytime you cast a black spell, it's cool. It's cool. Wow. I'm into it. The Zendikar control over its natives was absolute. So absolute, in fact, that the Rakkus started paying their creditors. I don't know what the Rakkus is. I guess the thing that I come back to is this is less interesting than the other card. Because this is just card draw. Card draw is super useful. This is a very strong card, probably, I'm guessing. I don't know. But that doesn't make it necessarily interesting. On the other hand, not every card needs to be super interesting. It's a set, right? So, yeah, I'm going to keep it. Phage the Untouchable. Okay, Phage is a character. I don't know how much characterization they ever got, but I do recognize the name. They have that one card that, like, loses you the game if it enters the battlefield without you casting it or something. So it's like this very weird. It's supposed to be this drawback, but you end up being able to, like, cheat it out into your opponent's side, and then they'd lose, and it's a very silly card. But Phage the Untouchable is a 2-mana red 2/1 enchantment creature shapeshifter. Phage the Untouchable can't be blocked. Phage the Untouchable can't be blocked. I've talked about this before, how I actually really enjoy it when the templating of the card, it may be redundant, but the way it's written just adds to the energy of it. It's Phage the Untouchable. They can't be blocked. Right? It's like repeating the first rule of Fight Club twice, right? It just adds some emphasis, and I just think that's fun. That said, 2 mana 2/1 that can't be blocked, that's probably pretty useful. I can see that being a thing that Red might want as like an aggro deck. But it's not that interesting, and also it's weird because Phage the Untouchable just does not sound like to me that reads as like a legendary creature, and it's not. Maybe that's not the case, right? The whole The Untouchable sounds very legendary, but maybe that's not what this is. Maybe this is like some kind of, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on here. Let's read the flavor text. Let us be a scarlet symbol of vengeance, the open wound of pride. I beg you, do not touch my brother. Do not tempt fate. I beg you. Uktabi. Yeah, I think we keep it. Yeah. I think it works. Winter March is a 1 mana red enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's white. When Winter March is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. Huh. Okay, so it's support for red-white. I don't know if red-white wants enchantments. I think it might, actually. I think red, like, white... Does white have payoff for, like, enchantments matter? Like, enchantments attached to, like, multiple auras attached to the same creature, or something like... I feel like it might. That's interesting. So, it does nothing. Except for, like, it kind of... It's bad cycling, meaning that you can, like, discard it to draw a card. It's like bad cycling if you don't have a white creature, because you would just cast this on something that was about to die, and then it would die, and then you'd get a card, but, like, eh. And if you do have a white creature, it's +2/+2. And I guess that's the thing, right? Like, if you're playing limited, you might be, like, really annoyed, be like, ah, dang, I can't use this card. But that happens. You're not using every card that you draft in limited or you open in sealed. But in a red-white deck, this could be pretty good. I think +2/+2 is decent. I don't know if it needs that drawback, but whatever. And then the fact that it sort of turns into a slow cantrip, like you'll replace it eventually. Yeah, I like it. I remember there was a recent card that came out that had a similar structure to this. Like, when it goes to the graveyard, you draw a card, and a prominent, like, MTG reviewer compared it to Rancor, a really well-known green enchantment that returns itself to your hand. And it's like, yeah, returning to your hand and drawing a card are kind of the same thing-ish, right? So let's compare it on those grounds. So this is probably pretty strong, but it has the drawback of needing to enchant a white, so you can't enchant your, like, hasty red aggro units. But Boros is going to love this. It is the voice of a mother's wrath, of a brother's oath, of a family's despair. Yeah, what is the theme of Winter March, anyway? I feel like all the blue had, like, fire-based cards, and now we're seeing, like, so much ice-based stuff in red. Sun-Touched Lands is a 5-mana red sorcery. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it. Huh. Usually effects like this also give it haste, because you can't really do much with a creature that doesn't have haste, because for some reason, a creature gets Summoning Sickness again when it changes control from one side of the battlefield to the other, which doesn't make any sense. That's a very weird rule that you just have to know exists because it's not intuitive. But anyway, that is the case. So this kind of doesn't do much. Like, there's use cases, don't get me wrong. There are use cases to this, but it's just like a very weak version of the effect it's going for. Here is your gift. The lands will always yield what we need. Grua. Wandering Enchantress, sorry. Rua sounds cool. I'm gonna redo Sun-Touched Lands, though. Twiddle is a 5-mana red sorcery. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a card from it with mana value 3 or less. That player discards that card. Ooh! Oh, that's cool. That's really expensive for this effect, right? But I probably will reroll this just because I don't think a single target, like, a single card discard effect is going to be good enough, especially with a restriction of mana value. But I like this design because some of the most well-known discard cards are things that are like, you just look at their hand, you can discard a non-land, or you can discard like a non-creature or whatever. This can hit lands because lands are 0 mana, right? And then I can hit some creatures depending on the power level, right? Like I think mana value is a really interesting thing to base that off of. Not for 5 mana though. All right, okay. Just go through with that. Just go through that window. I will say I think we have kept some pretty high cost discard cards in the past, but I think they discarded like 2 or 3 cards. They weren't like a card, so that's the difference here. Brutalize is a 5 mana sorcery. Brutalize deals 3 damage to any target. This is literally Lightning Bolt at 5 times the cost. As I mentioned previously, Lightning Bolt is not a great comparison because it's a very strong spell, but yeah, I'm gonna. This is not interesting. Also, it's a sorcery speed. It's like worse than Lightning Bolt, even if you ignore the cost. That which has lived has suffered. Quietus, monks, exalted 3. Exalted 3. I don't think exalted has like a number after it, does it? Zendikar's Influence is a 5 mana red sorcery. Return all other cards you own with different names to your hand. Exile Zendikar's Influence. Okay. I can imagine someone reading this and like deciding to come up with the silly ruling of like, well, all the cards in my sideboard, I own them. All the cards that I own outside the game, I own. So I'm just gonna put them on my hand. But no, it's yeah. It is all cards you... Oh, that's actually an interesting point. Like, it would have to be in the game, obviously, but... I think this would return all your, like, permanents in play, but it should also return everything from your graveyard, I would think. So that's potentially very strong, actually. Huh, because it's cards, right? It's not permanents, it's not creatures, it's cards. That's interesting. It's expensive, but it potentially has a really high like ceiling. This could draw you like 6, 7 cards. At the drawback of wiping your board, it makes sense that it's an exile effect as well. Like being able to recur things from your graveyard is something that modern MTG design really has to watch out for. So cards that let you do that often exile themselves, or exile the card you're returning, so you can't do infinite loops. So this card actually looks pretty good. I don't know if the cost is right, but it's letting you do a thing that's pretty interesting and unique and powerful. May I please ask, Master Nimbus, whether this act of insolence will damage the monument? Cool. No? I like it. The whole Zendikar thing is interesting. I don't think we've talked about it that much. We've seen Zendikar on a few cards. I don't remember if they've been kept or not. I don't know if Zendikar is a sort of a new thing in our setting for this set, or if there's some sort of interplanar shenanigans happening. Because this is bridges between worlds, after all. Maybe something's happening. Maybe we're in a nexus of planes. Temporal Incursion is a 2-mana red enchantment aura. Enchant land. As Temporal Incursion enters the battlefield, choose a non-land card name. Until end of turn, enchanted land becomes a Temporal Incursion. What? Okay. Comma, becomes a creature with base power and toughness 3/3, comma, and becomes a copy of that card. Okay, I don't know if this means anything, or if it's really powerful. Okay, so, as Temporal Incursion enters the battlefield, great, choose a non-land card name. Cool, I can choose any card. I'm gonna choose some random creature, let's say. Until end of turn, enchanted land becomes a temporal incursion, which is this card. So the land becomes an enchantment aura. The enchantment aura does it as soon as it becomes an enchantment aura. Does it automatically get the enchant land trigger? Or is that only when it like enters the battlefield, or when it's cast? It's probably when it's cast, right? Although I know there's mechanics where like if you want to return an enchantment aura from your graveyard to the battlefield, that act will like automatically connect it to something, I think. So maybe? Yeah. It also says it becomes a temporal incursion, not like a card named, but I'm gonna try and go easy on the templating because whatever. So let's pretend that works. It becomes a temporal incursion and it enchants another. It doesn't enchant another land. Let's just say it doesn't do anything. It's an enchantment aura with no target, which generally if the target of your enchantment aura dies or goes away, then the aura goes with it. But if it doesn't have a target, maybe it's just like a normal enchantment. Let's ignore that. Then it also becomes a creature with base power and toughness 3/3. What does that mean? Can it be a temporal incursion and a creature with base power and toughness 3/3? Well, yeah, it can be, because a land could just become an enchantment, like a creature with base power and toughness 3/3. An enchantment could become that. An artifact could become that. Like, anything can become that, so that's fine. And then it also becomes a copy of the card that you named, presumably. What does that mean? I feel like what this is really saying is that it becomes a copy of the card you named, but it is a creature with base power and toughness 3/3. The wording is a mess, but I think that's what it actually ends up meaning when all things like are said and done. Which is interesting. Like, 2 mana, sorcery speed. The fact that this is an aura is kind of irrelevant, but let's ignore that for now. One of your lands, or someone's land, I guess, becomes the card of your choice. The fact that you're just naming any card is ridiculous. Like, you're just gonna name any card. What cards are valid to name? I don't know. There is like, naming any card is a mechanic in the game, right? Like Pithing Needle, where you say activated abilities of the card that you name can't happen. Sure, but this is becoming a copy of the card that was named, so. I mean, presumably it's the card that was named. Maybe that card doesn't mean the card you named, but it probably does. I'm over analyzing this. I think we just re-roll it, but I wanted it to work, because it's like, whenever the AI does something really weird, that's when I'm most excited, so. Maybe it becomes an enchantment creature that's also. I'm so curious, like, what could you do? Like, if you could just say, I'm going to turn a land into a 3/3 power and toughness creature enchantment that also is any card in the game, is there any card you could name that is going to be stupid busted? And yeah, there are, because it would, if the land had already been on the battlefield and it's not tapped, it effectively has haste because it doesn't change zones, so you just have like this ridiculous like 10/10 broken thing that you could attack with. But it wouldn't be a 10/10. It would be a 3/3. I don't know. For 2 mana, it's definitely too powerful, but it's interesting. I think if this wasn't any card, it was like, you know, a copy of something on the battlefield, or even like a card you reveal from hand, that would be kind of cool. I don't know. I'm interested in it, but we're going to re-roll it. In another time, a different face awaited him. Splendid Aetherfield is a 2-mana red enchantment aura. Enchant land. Enchanted land is a 5/5 creature with flying. It's still a land. Cool! I like this. This isn't as strong as, like, 2-mana 5/5 flyer. Although it kind of is better because it's like a 2-mana 5/5 flyer with haste. Because the land was already on the battlefield. Oh, that's true. But it's like, it's kind of like a 3-mana 5/5 flyer with haste, because one of the lands you can't really tap, because otherwise it wouldn't be able to attack. I guess that's true. It's very strong. For 2 mana? Who? I like it. It's not the most broken thing we've seen. I like some cheap bodies being able to be on the ground. You could also use this offensively, right? You could use this to make your opponent's land into a creature and then murder it, right? Like, that's a thing you could do. And I know that we said no land removal in this set, but we've broken that rule a bunch of times, and this is not directly land removal. It just allows other cards to remove lands by way of them becoming creatures, so I think that's fun. It's probably too strong. I also like Aether Field. Like, that's just interesting. Like, you're injecting magic into this. And we've obviously seen cards previously in the set that talk about, like, bridges of Aether and stuff and melting Aether and all sorts of things going. Aether's important, so I like it. Rippling waves carry golden echoes from the past. I mean, think about that. Huh? Alright. Northland Bloodhunter is a 4-mana, 3/2 enchantment creature orc warrior. Northland Bloodhunter attacks each combat if able. Okay. For 2 mana, generic and a red, Northland Bloodhunter deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. Huh. So it's a 4-mana, 3/2. Not great. It attacks every combat if able, so that's a downside as well, so not great. And then you can spend 2 to ping everything without flying. That could wipe a board. That's a 6 mana to do 1 damage to everything. That's a lot. But you can play it ahead of time and then do only the 2 later, so it's not as limiting as that. It will hit itself, unless you somehow are able to give it flying. Which means if you activated it twice in the same turn, it would die. Or if it had, like, damage marked on it from other reasons. But yeah, nah. I'm going to reroll this. It's interesting. I feel like we haven't really seen much with orcs, and I can't remember if they're relevant so far, or if they're just not in the set. Or in the block, I should say. Trees aren't just for trimming anymore. They're also an excellent way to slow the advance of the enemies. Einar Gloeg. Plated Charger is a 4-mana 5/5. Ooh. Enchantment creature beast. With Bestow? Oh! I knew you knew how... I knew you could do Bestow, Urza's AI. You did it. You got there. So often we see an enchantment creature that tries to enchant something, and it's like, you can't do that. But Bestow is a real mechanic from Theros. Bestow, 5 mana. If you cast this card for its Bestow cost, so 1 more than its normal 4 mana cost, that's cool. It's an aura spell with enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it is not attached to a creature. So instead of falling off and going to the graveyard, it stays on the battlefield as a 5/5. Whenever Plated Charger or another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Well, dang it. This is very good. This is a 4-mana 5/5 that gets bigger when things die. That's pretty good. I like that a lot. The Bestow text is purely irrelevant is the problem. Like, it's not even like it's cheaper. Like, that would be cool. So Bestow generally is like, it allows you to actually enchant something, usually, like, for example, it could say, whenever Plated Charger or the enchanted creature... No, wait. Whenever Plated Charger or another creature you control dies, put a 1/1 counter on Plated Charger or the enchanted creature, right? And then, if you bestow something, you're giving that effect to something, But it would also be kind of cool just to be like, this is a way of getting a creature onto the battlefield cheaper. You cast it for a cheaper cost on something, and then you sacrifice that thing, and now you've got a 5/5. That would be really fun as well. But at the end of the day, this is just a 4-mana 5/5 with a really good upside. I guess the question is, do I think that if I just take it that way, is that too strong? I don't think it is. I think it's very good, and I think it's going to win a lot of games, but it's AI magic. The power level is different. And on the other hand, does having Bestow that is functionally useless, is that a deal breaker, right? Like, does that redundant text suddenly mean I really shouldn't keep the card at all, no matter how interesting or good or balanced it is. And I don't think that's true either. So I think I'm going to keep this. It's just weird, but I think I'm going to keep it. Plated with venom, bone, and the secrets of forgotten days. Cool. I like that card. I just really wish the bestow did something. I like a big dumb creature. And it's a pretty big dumb creature. Frost Lich. Yeah, what is this? Again, like, I mean, I get it. Ice is a part of the set, but it's just, it seems extra funny to me since we saw very little ice in the, like, blue, and now we're seeing, and we saw a lot of fire in blue, and now we're seeing not very much fire in red, but we're seeing a lot of ice, but whatever. Frost Lich is a 6 mana 5/5 elemental. At the beginning of each upkeep, Frost Lich deals 1 damage to you. No, I'm not going to keep that, actually. This Dark Lich was known as Zalin Delig, a rogue by trade. She turned her attentions to undead after she was rejected by the powerful Boros Coven. Traveling handbook entry. That's a really cool story. If I was here to mine Urza's AI for stories and jumping off points, that would be really interesting. But in this case, let's move on. Take 2. Rime Veil Frost Mage. Sure. Is a 6 mana 5/5 elemental. It has tap, add, red. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control no swamps, put a 1/1 counter on Rime Veil Frost Mage. Huh. Alright. I mean, it's weird to be like, specifically, you can't play this with red-black. But, like, okay, sure, that's, like, a pretty minor drawback. This is basically like a 6 mana 6/6 because you can't attack with it the turn it came into the battlefield anyway. So on turn 2, it's a 6/6. And then you get a 6/6 for 6. And that's not very exciting, but it will continue to grow. It grows pretty slowly, though, especially since that we just saw that last one. But, I mean, that's not a great comparison. That card was very strong. But, I don't know, 1 every turn. It's pretty good. It's just that it's 1 every turn, but it doesn't start till, like, turn 6. Like, that's pretty late in the game when you're actually doing it. And the adding the red's not very relevant at that point either, so. Do I want to keep this or not? I mean, it's going to be a 6 mana creature. Like, what else am I expecting other than, like a 5/5 that gets bigger? That's basically what I would expect. Yeah, let's keep it. Let's keep it. Familiar waters yield new treasures. Dimir phrase. The Dimir being a black-blue faction in Ravnica, so not necessarily relevant, but that's okay. Seeds of Destiny is a 3 mana red sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. That's it? Wow, that's it. And it has 2 red even. Wow. Some souls need only be fed a little to grow and multiply. The Empress had just fed one to a husk. And another. And another? What's that mean? Hierophant. Yeah, I'm going to roll that one again. Cry of the Carnarium. Carnarium? Cry of the Carnarium is a 3 mana red sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may reveal a creature card from your hand. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Wow! Huh. The fact that you reveal a card from your hand is very silly. Like, it doesn't do anything. It's not like, you know, search your library for a creature card with the same name as the card revealed card or something, or whatever like that. Like, it doesn't have to be the same. It does nothing. Again, it's just purely redundant text. Now, we've already accepted that we're kind of okay with some redundant text as long as it doesn't break anything. And I don't think this does. How do I feel about a 3 mana tutor up any creature? Well, I don't know. I think I'm fine with it. I don't really know what the going rate for that should be, but this is sorcery. So it's not that, you know, it's not that busted. I don't think 3 mana is too much for this effect, or too little for this effect anyway. Yeah. I like it. Spoils of the battle, bring 'em on. Lorena, master cartographer. Tutors are very strong, but yeah, it's cool. Thraben Militia. I recognize the name Thraben. That's like a Innistrad faction, I think. Thraben Militia is a 5-mana red enchantment. Creatures you control get +2/+2 as long as Thraben Militia is the highest land type among lands you control. Alright, let's unpack this. Obviously this card's getting rerolled. This is not a land. The highest land doesn't mean anything. But let's just... I just want to... 5 mana, creatures you control get +2/+2. Pretty strong. Having a restriction of when? Cool, I like that. I probably would have kept this otherwise. But it's the highest land type. Okay. Height doesn't mean anything here. I don't know what that would imply. Could this theoretically get a land type added to it somehow? Maybe. You could make this a forest, and then it would be a land type. It would be the land type forest. So, could happen, right? Like, that's a thing that exists. A lot of hoops to jump through to activate this, so you wouldn't do that, but sure. But even then, it has to be the highest land type among lands you control. And it's not even among lands. I don't even know if that would function, because it would not be among lands. I guess it would. If you became a forest, you would become a land as well. Yeah, I guess that's true. Anyway. We serve in the cause of the North. As we do not suffer, we neither fight. Thraben, guild motto. Weird card. The highest land. What could that mean? Like, obviously it means nothing. Like, if we're talking about just, like, the rules of the game, it doesn't function, we get to reroll. But if we're speculating... Crystalline Majesty is a 5-mana red enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has +4/+4 and has red. This creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Oh! I mean, 5 mana is expensive. This isn't just... If this was a 5-mana 4/4 with fire breathing, is that good enough? Probably. This is even better than fire breathing because it's giving +1/+1. Fire breathing again is like a slang, not slang, but like it's a community term for getting +1/+0 by spending a single red mana. And that's an activated ability that you can do as many times as you want in a turn, so you can just spend all of your mana after blockers have already been declared and just completely destroy somebody. It's cool. It's a cool ability. So this is very strong, but also very slow. Yeah, I like it. The gales that lash the peaks never reached his mountaintop, leaving only the highest clouds above the frigid sea. Alright, cool. Cool. Hey, Boros. I hope this card has to do with white. Probably not. It might. Boros Domination is a 6-mana red enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, Boros Domination deals 1 damage to you unless you pay red. That is never useful. They try to drag us into the Shadowlands. Let them. Boros clan motto. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about that. It hurts you unless you pay it. Like, there's with no upside. Boiling Vats is a 6-mana red enchantment. For 4 mana, sacrifice Boiling Vats. Target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn. For 2 mana, target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn. Okay. Huh. This is potentially quite strong. 6 mana, do nothing up front. But then, from then on, you can spend 2 mana to give any one creature +3/+0. So it's a better rate than Fire Breathing, right? It's 2 mana for +3 instead of 1 for 1. But you had to pay this upfront mana of 6. It also has this other ability that's completely useless of 4 mana and then sacrifice itself for the same effect, but whatever. I like it. I think it maybe is a bit expensive. If you have a way of cheating an enchantment onto the battlefield, which I don't know if that exists or not in the block, but if it does, cool. That's strong. In a wasteland like the Mirrorverse, Who wouldn't want to make friends with the wastes? I don't think we've heard of the Mirrorverse. Is this... Are we stuck in some reflection of reality? I haven't really thought much about lore in a while. Yeah, ooh, that sparks something. Sacred Scouring is a 1 mana red instant. Sacred Scouring deals 2 damage to any target. I'm okay with this. I don't know if we have a card that is stronger or weaker than this already in the set, but yeah, like I said before, Lightning Bolt is very strong. Lightning Bolt is 1 red for 3 damage. This is 1 red for 2 damage. I'm okay with that. As much as the power level in this set is oftentimes higher than real Magic, sometimes it's going to be lower. This is intended to create cards that you can use in limited gameplay, so not having every card be busted is important, right? Some things have to be common, some things have to be rare. I mean, that's not really true because we're not mapping rarity onto our cards and then making even distribution of the different rarity levels. That would be really fun to do, but that seems like a lot of work. Ice isn't the only material with memory. The crystal I call home is forever a record of every dream. Liadrin, Arc Trail. Ooh, Liadrin. This is cool. I don't know what that is, but I like it. Goblin Merry Bandit is a 2 mana, 2/1 enchantment creature goblin rogue. Whenever Goblin Merry Bandit attacks, you may search your library for an equipment card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Ooh. Okay. Alright, that's cool. I don't know how super strong that is, but it's got potential. I like it. It's just going to cheat out the initial cost of playing it. You're still going to have to equip it. So, I like it. I like it a lot. They're not what they seem. Okay. Nope. I shouldn't belabor the point. Let's keep going. That's great. I think that's a cool card. Moon Clan Inquisitor is a 3 mana red 2/2 elemental warrior. Tap. Moon Clan Inquisitor deals 1 damage to target creature you control. Dang it. If this was just like a simple 3 mana 2/2 pinger, I think that'd be great. Just like ping down the little creatures. That's nice to have in a set. I think that's nice. The fact that I can only hit stuff you control. Here's the thing, right? If Enrage was in this set, Enrage being a mechanic that allows that triggers abilities whenever something takes damage, that would be really cool. Obviously, it would just be worse than deal 1 damage to any creature, but still, it would have a use case. And that might exist in this set, but it's not like a prominent mechanic. That's one of the downsides of the whole AI Magic block thing, is that there aren't set mechanics, right? There isn't like, oh yeah, we're gonna see Enrage all the time. You might see it here or there, but not constantly. And that's, that's kind of a shame. I mean, that was what was really fun about doing like slivers, was just like everything had the sliver interaction. That was just common. So one time I was experimenting with Urza's AI and I wanted to make Aurochs because I thought it'd be funny, and they like all had Enrage, and I thought was like, that's not a thing any Aurochs in real Magic have, but I like it, so that's fun. I'd like to do that. I don't think anyone cares about Aurochs, so it would be just for me, so I'm not making that on as a video, but I mean, I don't know if there's demand for it. Inquisitor's Vengeance. It's cold, unyielding, and swift. I think this is... It's probably playable. It's just not that interesting. I want to roll it again. And I know I've said before, not every card has to be interesting. Not every card has to be super exciting and overpowered, but it's just like, I don't know. Forest Wolf is a 3 mana 2/2 creature beast. Tap Forest Wolf deals 1 damage to any target. Holy crap, what the heck? Okay, yeah, no, just made the exact same creature except this time it can hit any target. The fact that it can hit any target, including face, is pretty cool. Yeah, this card's amazing. It's not a wolf, which is weird. It's a red card, not a green card, despite forest in the name. which is weird. But ignoring those two aspects, like, holy crap. These wolves keep our path clear of brambles and thorns. Spellane of Wrath. Sometimes I wonder, like, if you should treat these AI generated cards as if they had as if they were like printed in old school Magic, and they haven't been like oracled yet, right? So this is a practice of like Wizards has gone back through the old Magic cards and updated their text, either updating the templating so that they read correctly to the modern rules, or even straight up changing creature types. There are beast cards that were originally printed with beast, that are either beast wolf, like they have added a term. Some of them they've even removed beast from. I know there's one card that was originally printed as a beast, and now it's a horse. So, like, there's something to be said for, what if we don't look at these cards as finished products? What if we look at these cards as the pre-Oracle version, and we can imagine what the Oracle version would be, right? This would be a beast wolf, or maybe even just a wolf. I'm not going to make those rulings, because that is a human adding rulings to the thing, as opposed to letting the AI do it, but I don't know. I think it like opens up some doors of like, oh, I see what they were going for here, even though it's written weirdly. We can make that work though. How would this be oracled? I think it's an interesting discussion to have. But yeah, no, this thing checks out. It's really strong. I don't know if it's too strong. I don't know if it's too normal. It's funny hearing like actual MTG streamers talk about like, oh, this card's really fair, and that's like kind of a like not an insult, but like it's like this card's not good enough to play because it's fair. It's like what does that mean? But yeah, that's good. Prorius the Created. That sounds like a legendary creature. Is a 3-mana 4/4 Phyrexian snake. It's a vanilla 3-mana 4/4. I like that. The ancients, however, were mistaken in their assessment of Phyrexia. The histories of Alexander Severus. It is weird that Prorius the Created is not like a creature, but it's a Phyrexian snake. This, like Phage the Untouchable, which wasn't a legendary, was just sort of like a thing. It was just kind of like a thing in the world. I don't know, I can sort of see this here as well. Maybe there's something there. And we need more Phyrexians anyway. I'm just curious. I want to see what the going rate, like, what does a vanilla 4/4 cost these days? I mean, they don't print vanilla anymore, but you know what I mean. Alright, so there are 3-mana 4/4s. Do they have upsides? Probably. Arrogant Bloodlord, for example. Same cost in that it costs generic colored mana of the same type. Is a 3-mana 4/4. Whenever Arrogant Bloodlord blocks or becomes blocked by a creature with power 1 or less, destroy Arrogant Bloodlord at the end of combat. There you go. It's a downside. Now, I don't know when this card came out. It's probably like old and doesn't get reprinted, but it's an interesting thing to consider. How about this dragon? Dragons are busted, so it's probably not a great comparison, but let's take a look at it. Chaos Dragon is a 3-mana 4/4 flying haste dragon. It attacks each combat if able. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each player rolls a d20. If one or more opponent has the highest result, Chaos Dragon can't attack those players or planeswalkers. So that's like a commander only thing, I guess. It wouldn't really make sense otherwise. Huh. Honestly, like I think it's pretty reasonable. 3-mana 4/4 seems okay. That's cool. Generally, these are downsides. Oh, wait. What's Crystalline Nautilus? 3-mana 4/4, Bestow of 5. When it becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Oh, there you go. Downside. Enchanted creature gets +4/+4 and has, when this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Wow. Okay. Cool. I like it. Yeah, sure, it's not nearly as strong as a lot of the stuff in the AI set, but I think it fills out the draft really nicely. I like vanilla creatures. I just rarely see one that's statted in a way that makes me go, yeah, that's good enough. Cool. Frozen Weaponry is a 5-mana red instant. Red can be paid with either red or 2 life. That's not true, but let's ignore that for now. Create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. The templating of this card is wild. It doesn't even say, like, choose 1 and then only list 1 or anything. It just has the, like, bullet as if that's what it's gonna say. I'm gonna reroll this for multiple reasons. When Orzova dies, roll a d20. If you roll 20, create a token that's a copy of Orzova. Yeah. Mistform Cascade is a 5-mana red instant. Red can be paid with either red or 2 life. Okay. Mistform Cascade deals 2 damage to any target. I wonder, actually... No, never mind. I was going to say I wonder if this is like a weird fix that they implemented, because Phyrexian mana used to be kind of broken. Phyrexian mana being the mana that you can pay with a color or 2 life. But then I remembered we actually set the mana cost for this set, so that it couldn't possibly be making that mistake. Yeah, this card's just bad. I mean, even if you could pay... Even if it was only 3 mana, like you didn't have to pay the red, that's still not very good. The Emperor had divided his winter command into multiple small units to reduce the chance of a single alchemist discovering the formula. Cascade of Stars is a 5-mana instant. Cascade of Stars deals 5 damage to target player or planeswalker. I don't think that's good enough. I think do we print a 5-mana like deal 5 damage, gain 5 life? I think we might have. I think that already exists in the block somewhere. In Aurelia, the benevolent dragon priestess blesses every victory. In another plane, her every blessing is a victory. That's cool flavor text. I liked that, actually. That was really fun. Sky Marcher Glory is a 5-mana instant. Sky Marcher Glory deals 2 damage to any target. Raid, Sky Marcher Glory deals 3 damage to any target. Okay. I don't remember what Raid does. Raid's like one of those ability words that denotes a line of text that's only applicable in certain situations. Now, that text needs to be in there. It's not like a keyword where you can omit it entirely, and it has its own rules. But omit the explanation, I mean. So, I guess this just deals 2 damage to any target and then also deals 3 damage to any target. And, I don't know, the fact that you can split your 5 damage between 2 targets is kind of interesting. It's not very interesting, but, I don't know, there's something to be said there. It just makes me wonder if this is the best we're gonna get or not. I think we should keep rolling it. A shining golden arrow seeks a high, swift target. Its rider thirsting for exultant spurt of war. The exultant spurt of war? I don't know how to feel about that. Primal Amazement is a 5-mana red instant. Choose 1. Creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. Always a very good effect. Or each opponent loses 1 life. Yeah, okay. Alright, sure. I mean, +2/+2 and trample is good. No matter what the format is. That's just a really good thing to have. In the wilds of Egeria, treacherous fae are found in the thinnest places, and a hidden court is waiting to claim its prey. Alright. Okay. It'll do. Geistfall is a 5-mana red sorcery. This is why this set's taking so long. Destroy target non-black creature. Its controller creates 2 1/1 black spirit creature tokens with flying. Holy crap, that is so bad. That's such an awful card. He took a moment to touch her and send her soul spiraling towards its chosen destination. Elspeth. 5 mana to blow something up, and the controller gets Lunarchomancer's Archaeo. Lunarchaeomancer. Yeah. Lunarchaeomancer. That's a cool name. Lunarchaeomancer's Blessing is a 5-mana red sorcery. Target player draws a card, and you gain 3 life. Okay. My apprentices know far more about pain than they do about comfort. When you've earned it, they'll give it to you. Dovin, Praetor's voice. We need more. We need more Phyrexian stuff. Shadow Summons is a 5-mana red sorcery. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Oh, come on. Forced to turn his back on the church and abandon his monastic vows, Mav's rebirth has brought forth the worst in him. I'm gonna pick up the pace on this. Magmatic Fissure is a 5-mana red sorcery. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Magmatic Fissure deals damage to you equal to the number of ice permanents you control. What was even the point of revealing from the library? It cracks apart anything in its path. I mean, at least it was like a fiery spell. That's cool. Invigorating Vanquish is a 5-mana red sorcery. Invigorate 2. Is that a real keyword? I don't know this keyword. As this spell is used by your opponents... Nope, it's not a real keyword. Okay. Deal 2 damage to each of those players. That damage is not prevented. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Is it possible to make Invigorate make sense? I don't think so. As this spell is used by your opponents, that doesn't mean anything. Now, if we do try and dip into the idea that, well, this was written before they really figured out the templating, what would the Oracle text be? I guess it's like, Invigorate 2, when you cast this spell, your opponent deals 2 damage to you, which is weird. Do players even do damage? I think every damage needs like a card as a source, right? I don't think players do damage directly ever. So that's weird. I guess this spell would do damage. So it's just this spell is doing 2 damage to you as an additional cost, basically, I guess. And then destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments is a powerful enough effect that it's like, okay, that's a reasonable 5-mana sorcery in some situations, especially with enchantment creatures as part of like the standard meta. Cool. But, what the heck? Scarzan in chat is saying maybe it's a graveyard effect. Do you mean like, I mean, there's something we said for like, since it's a keyworded, it could mean something like that. I think that graveyard effects only can possibly work if they specifically call it being in the graveyard, because otherwise lots of abilities would love to be happening in the graveyard, but they don't say so. But even if that was the case, what does it mean for it to be used by your opponents? I don't know. I'm tempted just to keep it and say that line doesn't mean anything, but I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I need to actually get a real spell here. Now, who has had enough of that old stuff? Spellgorger. Razormane Siege Engine is a 5-mana red sorcery. Create 3 1/1 red Razormane Siege Engine creature tokens. Flying. This isn't a creature. It doesn't get flying. Unless it's the idea that, like, this sorcery is not a creature. It's a sorcery, so it's got flying, but it's creating tokens named Razormane, like, that are Razormane Siege Engines, but they're also creatures. And since, of course, Razormane Siege Engine has flying, they also have flying. That's kind of cute, but also not how that would work, and also way too expensive for that effect anyway. I think. I'm actually not very good at judging how strong token generation should be for its cost. I have found before that I've always been surprised that, like, 4 mana make 3 1/1s is good. So making 3 1/1s with flying, maybe that is worth 5 mana. I don't know. It's not what this card says, though. And also, it's not instant speed. I think that's usually one of the things, is that being able to instant speed make tokens increases their value, I think. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering cards. Kopesh Berserkers, runic and armored. How else could you hold the Razormoor? Magius Alaborn Warcaster. I think that card was actually pretty cool, if it worked the way I was thinking. Blizzards is a 5-mana red sorcery. Blizzards deals 5 damage to each creature. Okay, good enough. It's actually pretty, like, flavor pie correct for... Flavor pie? Color pie. Correct for red, right? In that they wouldn't just get destroy all creatures, they would do damage to the creatures. Okay, sure. The fact that destroy all creatures is like a 5-mana effect, it does feel really weird that this is not destroying them, it's only doing 5 damage. So it makes you wonder, like, could this be cheaper? But I don't know what the going rate for, like, a Wrath in red is, so I'm gonna take it. And just board wipes are always so useful. It's only cold in the beginning. Oh, these blizzards that are hot? Okay, sure. Why not? Nixilis, Unplugged. This is Nixilis' acoustic album. Nixilis Unplugged is a 1-mana red instant. Destroy target non-artifact creature. It can't be regenerated. This is go for the throat, right? It can't be an artifact. Alright, I mean, sure. I don't have a problem with this existing. I don't know how many artifact creatures there are. It's not super common, so it's probably... This is just going to be a 1-mana murder, but whatever. Who cares? You get it. It wasn't just that the gem had so much power. It had so much potential. Okay. Works for me. What is this? Wall of Lost Souls is a 1-mana red 0/5 wall with Defender. Tap. Wall of Lost Souls deals 1 damage to target creature defending player controls. Crap. I was excited. You know me if you've been watching this channel for a while. If you haven't, welcome in. Nice to have you here. I love walls. I think walls are cool. I know it's stupid, but I like them. 1-mana 0/5 with Defender. Cool, I like that. That's nice. The problem is, tap Wall of Lost Souls deals 1 damage to target creature defending player controls doesn't mean anything. Because defending player is a term that only exists during attacks, right? Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. If you are in, like, the combat phase, and you have a creature attacking a player, does that player count as the defending player at the moment? I think the answer is no. I think Wall of Lost Souls would have to be attacking for there to be a defending player, right? Because you can split your attacks up between multiple players. That's allowed. So, therefore, defending is relevant to the creature attacking, I think. I could very much be wrong about this. I would be curious to know. Other than that, it's an 0/5 for 1. I think that my problem is just like, I'm so curious if there's like a correct ruling judge-wise on this, and this does work, then I'm going to feel real bad for re-rolling this. But if this is just an effect that looks like it should work, but it actually doesn't work, and it's just text that misleads the player, that feels bad. That feels bad. I don't like that. It's not the same as it just doing nothing. It's doing nothing in a weird, like confusing, like in a way that misleading way. There we go. So, I think I have to roll it again. It's also not cool enough for the name Wall of Lost Souls. You can have a better effect than that. Not for 1 mana, I guess. No death, no terror, just the ultimate defense. This card is the ultimate defense. Abominable Waste Pack is a 1-mana 1/1 bird soldier. Did I never read the flavor text of that vanilla card we saw earlier? I don't think I did. Like the olden badger, they travel the abominable wastes, but their dirty dealings include melting ice caps, and torching jungle trails. I'm not keeping a 1-mana 1/1 vanilla in my deck. Sorry. If this had flying, I'd say fine. This is a bird soldier. It's got flying. It's not amazing, but hey, 1-mana 1/1 flyer, it'll do. This, nah. Try it again. Mana Bird Mage is a 1-mana 1/1 bird wizard with flying. Urza's AI is just listening to me today, huh? Alright. For 2 mana, monks you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. If there's a monk in this set, I'm gonna be so happy. That's so funny. I don't think there are. A monk is an actual creature type. You could have a board full of monks, and then this buffs your entire board, +1/+0, for every 2 mana spent. That's really good! If that was the case. Obviously, this isn't a monk, so... but... I don't know, that's fun. I'm into that. I'm really getting excited to do some constructed. I really want to try building decks once the block is done, which is sort of like the block being its own, like, mini standard, basically. He has eyes for flying and arrows for monks. Wait, what? I guess, like, he's handing them out. He's handing out the arrows. They're like magic arrows that he only gives monks. He only likes monks. Yeah, sure, that works. I'm into it. Skyline Keeper is a 2-mana 1/2 human knight. Skyline Keeper gets +1/+0 for each basic land type among lands you control. Okay, that's a real mechanic. I think it's called Domain. Yeah, totally. So mountain is a basic land type, swamp, forest, island, plains. So cool. This could potentially become pretty big. Fun. For 1 red, Skyline Keeper gets +0/+1 until end of turn. Oh! I like that a lot. You don't see that very often. It's usually not worth it. What you want is just to, like, get one unblocked thing through, and then you pump it full of mana, and it kills your opponent, and you're very happy. But being able to survive is nice, and especially the fact that this is a 2-mana, like, 5/2 or 6/2 sometimes. Being able to shore up its defenses when you need to is going to be really nice. I think that's going to really, really be appreciated. Many of our new defenses are overkill for an attacking force. That is a fact that cannot be changed. I like that card. That card's really cool, actually. What do we have here? Another Praetor? Deathmantle Praetor is a 7-mana 5/5 elemental warrior. Not a Phyrexian. Okay. There's something interesting about this. Like, yes, I named the set Praetors of Enchanted Ice. There have been some Phyrexians, but not much, which is cool. I would think that the AI would see Praetor and go, ah, Phyrexian. But obviously Praetor does not inherently mean Phyrexian. It's just the context that we use it in Magic. So, cool. Elemental Warrior Praetor. That's fun. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature. Okay, so it's 7 mana and sacrifice a creature. You're asking a lot. Whenever Deathmantle Praetor attacks, you may exile a creature you control rather than pay the spell's mana cost. That doesn't mean anything. Whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card. Nah, we're trying this again. I know it's a big ask. It's a 7 mana creature, but what is this? Some death I must have. Yeah, I guess so. You may exile a creature you control rather than pay the spell's mana cost. But only when it's attacking. Like, what? Okay. I mean, card draw's nice, but 7 mana. Glacial Obliterator is a 7-mana 5/5 elemental. At the beginning of your upkeep, Glacial Obliterator deals X damage to target creature, where X is the number of snow permanents you control. Huh. Okay. I mean, I had been considering having Snowlands as being in the set, and I think I'm gonna go with that. I was sort of on the fence about it previously, but cool. Yeah, let's have Snowlands be available in this standard, right? I know they're relevant for some cards in Gods of Winter, so they're being relevant here as well. Cool. Checks out. Makes sense. So what does that mean? It means likely you're gonna be doing 7 damage to a creature every upkeep. Okay. Sure. I think that's good. Maybe. It takes a mighty effort to sever the chain that that binds it. Sorry, I thought it said something about birds. I got excited. I think that checks out. Sightless Invocation is a 1-mana red sorcery. Search your library for a swamp or island card, put it into the battlefield, then shuffle. Honestly, this card's pretty good. I'm totally okay with this. It's very good now that I think about it. Not only is it helping you find the lands you need, if you're playing red-black or red-blue, then, hey, you need to make sure you're getting your lands. And then additionally, it goes directly into the battlefield, which means you're getting an extra land drop this turn, effectively. This card's very strong. Cool, I like it a lot. I could see somebody playing mono red and still having like 1 or 2 swamps or islands in their deck just so that they can ramp a little. That's a good spell. They can't see, but we can smell them coming. Oracle on the lace. Oh, I don't know what that means. Cool. Contested Passage is a 5-mana red instant. Destroy target non-basic land. I don't want land destruction. Contested Passage deals damage to target creature equal to the number of swamps you control. It kills 1 creature. And I guess a non-basic land, but there probably won't be any non-basic lands. Non-basics are really hard to get the AI to make properly, so I don't think we're doing them. In the centuries that followed the Tarashi War, it was discovered that the marshes did not stop at the Jade Sea. Instead, a gateway had opened, leading to the Aether Realm, a realm of madness and cold, the stench of which still hangs in the air. Ooh, I'm curious about the Aether Realm. Shame this card's not real. Oh well. Shielding Volley is a 5-mana red instant. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Didn't we already make like a 5-mana creatures get +2 and +2/+2 and trample? No. The well-stocked storehouses of every undercity always drew soldiers to their side. Now that every runaway youth can bear arms, those scant supplies must now defend themselves. That's really interesting. I quite like that. Dizzy Spellbomb is a 5-mana red instant. Dizzy Spellbomb deals 5 damage to target player or planeswalker. When you don't want the lads to notice your meltdown, put a burning crater in the path of the boys. That's such good flavor text. Thaw the Water. Okay, we had Thaw the Aether, which is much more impressive, but what happens when you Thaw the Water? Thaw the Water, 5-mana, red, instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn. Fuse. You may cast one or both halves of this card from your hand. Dang it. Crap. Okay, so that's Fuse is a mechanic for when there's like a split card. If a card has 2 different ways you're allowed to cast it, you can cast both of them instead of casting only one. It's cool. It's a cool fact. Obviously, there's only one side of this card because the AI doesn't know how to make split cards. In a word, it's different. All right. Stark the Behemoth is a 5-mana red instant. Stark the Behemoth deals 4 damage to target creature. Foretell 4. During your turn, you may pay 3 mana with a red involved. That's weird. To foretell this card. It doesn't have the reminder text, but foretell meaning that you can then later cast it from exile for 4 mana, whatever. If you did, foretell it? I created 3/3 blue ogre creature token. I mean, okay. If we talk about this card as if we pretend it was written correctly, this is a 5-mana card that deals 4 damage to target creature. Maybe you're in a pinch. You need that. You don't have time to foretell. That's what you need to do right now. Sure. You spend 5 mana, you kill something. You're not happy about it, but hey, the creature's dead. It was worth it at the time. Sometimes flexibility is important. So, sure. Alternatively, you could foretell it for 4. Now, if I recall correctly, foretell is, what? I think it's 2 mana to foretell a card? It's always the same because it's supposed to be hidden information from your opponent. They don't know what card you foretold because you foretell it, you exile it face down so they don't know what it is. And then later you can cast it for its foretell, which is sometimes more, sometimes less than the normal casting cost, right? I'm going to ignore the during your turn you may pay 3 to foretell this turn. That doesn't even foretell this turn? Okay, I'm just going to ignore that for now. I think we're re-rolling this, but I kind of want to talk about it anyway. Imagine you paid correctly. That's 2, and then on a future turn you can spend another 4. So you're spending 6 mana to do 4 damage. But you're also getting a 3/3 blue ogre. Is that relevant? Maybe? Is 6 mana deal 4 damage and get a 3/3 good? I think no. I think that's pretty bad. I mean, it's instant speed. You're getting the ogre at instant speed. That's something. Like, that's like saying this is a 6 mana 3/3 ogre with haste. When this enters the battlefield, do 4 damage to target creature. Yeah, I don't think that's very good. Anyway, welcome to Erebos. I will go first. Alright. Sweltering Earth is a 5 mana red instant. Destroy target land. You gain 2 life. No. Your gifts were warmed by a balm that clung to my cloak like sweat. Mernskir, Seer of Secrets. Nope, we're not doing land destruction. Yes, I allowed an 8 mana land destruction because I could not get it to make a good 8 mana card, and honestly, no one's going to pay 8 mana for land destruction, so it doesn't matter. Deadbeat is a 5 mana red instant. Target creature you control gains haste until end of turn, draw a card. That's very expensive for that effect, but it is a cool effect. Like, giving something haste is relevant. It really, it's a big deal, but not a 5 mana big deal, I don't think. You do draw a card. When I first laid eyes on it, I thought it was just a pebble. But now I'm sure it's a crumbling world. Unbreakable Formation is a 5 mana red instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile up to 1 target creature you control until your next upkeep. Oh, that's cool. So that's actually a benefit often. You get to flicker something. A slow flicker is your next upkeep. So if you do it on your turn, it's a whole turn cycle. If you do it on your opponent's turn, it's just next turn. Cool. If a creature you exile this way would die this turn, exile it instead. What? Okay, I mean, I thought maybe there'd be some actual interesting 5 mana effect, and you're also getting to do this exile thing as a cost that is also an upside. That's cool. I think that's really fun. But it doesn't have an effect. The effect of the card is, if a creature you exiled this way, which would be that one from its additional cost, if it would die this turn, which it can't, it got exiled, exile it instead. This card does nothing. I mean, it doesn't do nothing. It flickers something for 5 mana. It's really bad. If we cannot build the cities of tomorrow, we will simply make them ourselves. Zaros. Revel in Darkness is a 5 mana red instant. Until end of turn, each player may cast spells from the top of their library. Oh. Huh. This is a cool spell. These kind of effects are very powerful, especially if you could... But the fact that it's symmetrical means you'd think it would be maybe a bit cheaper. Even then, you're spending 5 mana. How much mana do you have left to actually cast spells from the top of your library? But in red, I feel like this is very powerful. It reminds me a lot of Impulse Draws, right? Impulse Draw. Exile the top card of your library, you may cast it this turn. But if you don't cast it, it stays in exile, right? So, cool. This is saying 5 mana, you may cast the top card of your library this turn. And also the next one. And also the next one. And also the next one. In that order, but still, like, if you're playing an aggro deck that has done a bunch of stuff and then ran out of fuel, and now you want to be casting a bunch of, like, 1-drops off the top of your library because your hand is empty, this could be really cool. Now, do you have, 5 mana to cast this spell? Probably not if you're in an aggro deck. But even if you do you then have the additional 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th mana to make this mana worth it? Probably not. Like, I can't see this card ever working. It's interesting. I especially like the symmetrical nature. There's something really fun about, like, yeah, if your opponent's tapped out, they don't really get any benefit out of this. But if they're not tapped out, they could really mess you up, right? I don't know. I think it's cool. I just wish it... I don't know. Cards that let you do something that you otherwise couldn't do are always interesting. And maybe, even if they're not very good, they should be left in. Because you might be able to make them worthwhile. You might be able to do that fun, janky build around that doesn't actually work, but you're gonna try anyway. I love that about Magic. I don't know. I still don't think I can make it. I don't think I can keep it. The Archon Crusade may have destroyed Elysium, but it couldn't erase its abominations. Honestly, I probably should have kept it, just because, like, it's so hard to make these high-level, like, these expensive instants. So, Mana Depletion is a 5-mana red instant. You may pay, generic and red, and sacrifice a land. If you do, target player mills 2 cards. Woo! 7 mana, sacrifice a land to make your opponent mill 2. Mage Kills is for the meek. Vengeance is for the strong. Nobles of Haldor. Gust of Winds is a 5-mana red instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile 2 cards from your graveyard. Okay. Gust of Winds deals 3 damage to target creature. When even the slightest of snowflakes threatens to knock the battle off its course, we fight. There's so many powerful effects that I've seen Urza's AI make. Like, so many powerful effects. If only I could figure out, like, that those things should be 5 mana instead of 2 mana. Like, I don't know. Wild Whet is a 5-mana red instant. You may play an additional land this turn, and this also has cycling 3. 3 mana, discard this card, draw a card. An Ember will never truly die. This is getting somewhere. I mean, you're not going to spend 5 mana just to ramp. You're not going to spend 3 mana just to draw a card. You're always going to prefer just to not have run this card in your deck. But it's like doing something, I guess? I don't know. Artifact Explosion is a 5-mana red instant. Destroy target artifact. I'm going to destroy this ancient piece of junk so you can get a nice clear shot. Llanowar the Frost King. Sure. Lifted by Clouds is a 5-mana red instant. Untap target creature. That creature gains lifelink until end of turn. It would seem a tragedy for our ice cream business to go under. Yet I believe that to be prevented, we must simply leave our small community. Erasmus Featherfist. Featherfist is a good name. I could definitely imagine making, like, a monk named Featherfist. Phyrexian Mana Battery is a 5-mana red instant. Phyrexian Mana Battery deals 2 damage to any target. Phyrexians work as batteries, storing their surplus mana for instantaneous use. They often sleep on ships, in hopes of harnessing its stored power. All that stuff sounds cool, but you didn't make, like, a weird, powerful 5-mana, like... Imagine this was like Jessica's Will or something, and it just like gave you a whole bunch of mana and then let you cast stuff, and that would work really well. That would seem appropriate. Gleeful Farewell is a 5-mana instant. Exile target creature, you gain 3 life. You know what? It'll do. Exile is sometimes enough of a pay like a benefit that it's worth spending 5 mana instead of the normal going rate for destroying a creature. And also, you get to gain some life, which activates all your life gains if you have any. It's fine. Every arrow leaves the bow with the voice of a king. Eldra, Arcanist. Gleeful Farewell is a great name for exiling a creature and gaining life. I think that's beautiful. You did it. You knocked it out of the park. You finally got there. Claustrophobia is a 2-mana red sorcery. Claustrophobia deals 1 damage to each creature. Cool. I like that. Are you lost or are you just out of air? Puntrick, Orzhov Innkeeper. This would be better if it was instant, but otherwise, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Moving on. It's fine. Fey Caller is a 5-mana 2/2 red spirit. When Fey Caller dies, you gain 4 life. I don't think so. I mean, gaining 4 is a lot. That's significant. That's a 2/2. It's 5 mana. Nah. The first voice the caller hears is that of the wind. The second is that of the tree. The third is that of her own voice. Okay. Bellowing Minotaur is a 5-mana 3/3 Minotaur Soldier. Bellowing Minotaur gets +2/+2 as long as you control a mountain. Okay, so it's a 5-mana 5/5. Great. For 3 mana, Minotaur Bellowing, that's not its name. I'm going to ignore that for now. Gets +1/+1 until end of turn. 5 mana 5/5 with 3 mana to get +1/+1. It's still not even that exciting. I was excited for it to actually do something with 5 mana. Honestly, it's better at 5 mana creatures than it is at 5 mana sorceries. So we'll get there. We'll get there. Minotaurs rise to protect their mountain home. It's a job they've taken to heart, whether they are drawn to its riches or the bonds of its strong primitive community. This is actually our last card. I might as well start saying that now while we have a second for it loading. Ooh, Phyrexian, be something good, please. Corrupted Scob is a 5-mana 2/3 Phyrexian with Infect. This creature deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and players in the form of poison counters. Okay. For 2 mana, Corrupted Scob gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Is this a 5-mana effect? I legitimately don't know. I do not know how to value Infect. If you're not aware, Infect, if you get 10 poison counters, the poison counters go on players. They lose. They just lose. And that still annoys me. I feel like it would be very easy for Wizards to just say, hey, guess what? We've changed the rules. You now need to do half the starting life total of a player in poison counters for it to work. It would still be a problem in other formats, but it wouldn't be a problem in Commander is bad because you have to hit 20 poison counters instead of 10 when you normally start at 40 life. It's a huge disparity. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I don't know how to gauge the strength of this card. 5 mana seems like a lot, but it seems pretty powerful, honestly. It's got Infect, which is a powerful effect. It can buff itself, which is always useful. I'm going to allow it. And it's Phyrexian. We need more Phyrexians in this set. The ebb and flow of the Scarab Opid. Scarabopib. Fahugugads. The ebb and flow of the Scarabopib can no longer be explained. Yeah, you said that. All right, that brings us to the end of the red cards. I kind of just looked at the numbers on this one. I feel like I got really... I can't think of the word. My head is fried. I'm sorry, everybody. Join me next time for all the green. I think that's just the way we're going to have to do these ones. These are slow going. I hope you all join me as we move forward. I'm very excited to eventually get to some gameplay, but we got to finish this block before we can move on. So I will catch you in the next one. Have a good night.